So here we will discuss very briefly about the force constant of a spring. Now, so this is the diagram of a spring with one end fixed. So that is a fixed end of the left end in the fixed end of the string, and there are certain coils on the spring, and an applied force F acts on the right end. So this F is the applied force. Now see, there are all these coils. See, coil 1, coil 2, 3, 4, say up to n coils are there. So n coils. Now due to the application of the force, what happens? The distance between the coils will increase. Now, by the way, this is the length now shown. This is the natural length or the free length. That means when no force is applied, the length of the spring is natural length, or it is also known as the free length. Now, here just the force has started to act. Now, after some time, the spring will increase in length, and let's see what happens then. So now we are seeing the extended length of the spring in this diagram. Now, suppose I tell that, see, delta is actually the increase in gap between the successive coils. Now suppose you start from here. So the coil 1 will actually be displaced to the right by delta, and the distance between coil 1 and coil 2, that increases by delta. So from the initial position of coil 2, the final position of coil 2, so it goes forward by 2 delta. This is quite easy to understand. Suppose you have here coil 1, say, so you have these lines, right? Say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like this. Now, say there is a certain gap. Suppose the gap happens to be A between the coils. Now, next time the gap will increase. Say I could take one more. This is the fixed end, or say also from the fixed end the distance is A. So suppose the gap increases by delta. If the gap increases by delta, so the gap was A actually here. So the fixed end is same. So now that's coil 1. Let's draw the coils 1, 2 and 3 afterwards. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 will be like this. Okay. So now this gap has become A plus delta. This is also A plus delta. This is also A plus delta, like this. So the gap increases by delta. Okay. So the fixed end is already there. This is the same position, is fixed. Now let's look at the coil 1. So due to this extension, the coil 1 displaces by how much? Coil 1 displaces to right by delta. Coil 2 displaces to right by 2 delta. Coil 3 displaces to right by 3 delta. So coil N displaces to right by N delta. So the total extension in the spring, right? So what is the net extension in the spring? So it is obviously N times delta if there are N coils in the spring. So that is why the total extension in the spring of n coils is X is equal to n delta. Now if you cut the spring into half, cut the spring into two halves, two equal halves. Now for each half the natural length is half, natural length becomes half. So what is the number of coils? Number of coils also becomes half. So for the same force, F, the extension becomes half, becomes n by 2 delta. So these are the two springs. So this is the spring shown to the bottom. Actually lower one has exactly half the length, doesn't look like half. Okay, then make it a bit shorter. Okay, so for the same force applied, extension in this top spring is X and the extension in the lower spring is half of X, because the gap between the successive coils will increase by delta for both. Number of coil becomes half in this half spring. So what is the force constant? K F by X, and for this K dash is equal to F by X by 2, so that is 2F by X. So this K dash becomes equal to 2K. So proportionately, say if you divide the spring into say 3 equal parts, the force constant of the spring is K, this whole spring. So each part will have a force constant 3K. Because the extension of this total spring is X, then the extension of each of these parts 1/3 is equal to X by 3, because the number of coils becomes 1/3, the natural length becomes 1/3. So we can conclude that the force constant of the spring multiplied by its natural length is constant. I mean, if it is from the same spring, if it is cut out of the same spring, right? So here you see, if the natural length becomes 1/3, the force constant becomes 3 times.